Introduction. Upon arriving at the Dalong Dynasty in a different world, the government initially assigned girls to be chosen as daughter.in.law. A person with a big arm and a round waist, who is easy to raise and work for, is well liked, but someone with a slim figure is not wanted and is despised by others. Faced with this situation, as a modern good youth, how can one tolerate it? "I'll give her a home," Lin Fan said as he slowly grasped his outstretched hand. Keywords of the novel. The government allocates wives. Does this require selection? No pop-ups. The government assigns daughter.in.law. Does this require selection? Download the complete set of TXT. The government assigns wives. Do you need to choose? Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. At the beginning, the government allows the selection of a daughter.in.law. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. At the beginning, the government allows the selection of a daughter.in.law. Iron pillar, iron pillar. Early in the morning, Lin Fan was awakened by a shout. Looking at the mottled earthen brick walls and the empty home, he once again confirmed that he had truly traveled through and arrived in a strange world, not in a dream. "Hey, although I have been in this world for a few days." But seeing the house with leaking walls, Lin Fan couldn't help but sigh. He was originally a modern good young man who had food and drink every day, and even had leisure time to invite his girls to play games in the dark. Although it was not very good, it was not too bad either. "After staying up late and playing games once, I fell asleep at the computer desk and inexplicably traveled through a wonderful time. Come to a world similar to ancient times. Compared to the modern happiness. He was devastated here. When his mother gave birth to him, she had difficulty giving birth, while his father was a traditional and stubborn person who directly protected his childhood. 2 years ago, my father went up the mountain to chop firewood and accidentally fell into a mountain stream. He didn't stay up for 2 days and left. Now the whole family. He is just a single seedling that has just reached the crown. As for the belongings, only this adobe house, plus a relatively spacious yard. Both parents died. There is a house at home. At first glance, this looks like a protagonist template. But in reality, there is almost no rice left to cook. Thinking of this, he let out another leisurely sigh. It's not good to stay up late and play games. Please arrange the game time reasonably. What's wrong, Uncle Wang? Lin Fan got up and put on a complicated robe, then pushed the door open and walked outside. Since you're here, should we live or should we live? You can't commit suicide, can you? Outside the yard. It's a tall and thin middle-aged man who was shouting just now. I'm still sleeping, it's all up to me. Pack up and come with me to the village entrance. Today is the day when the government sends the bride. Yunyan will bring someone over soon. Come with me to choose the bride. The tall and thin middle-aged man shouted and rebuked. The government sent a lady. When Lin Fan heard the other person's words, his eyes suddenly lit up. The place where he is currently located is called the Dalong Dynasty. Due to years of foreign wars, the people have been living very hard and the taxes are very heavy. But there is a benefit. That's because for the sake of population growth, the government will send wives to single men. According to the words here. That is to say, Fa Xiaonyang. This kind of good thing, just thinking about it in modern times, is impossible to achieve. But it has been achieved here. And it's real talent. No second words. Lin Fan quickly tidied up and didn't even take a bite of his meal, so he followed the other party to the village entrance. The location of the village entrance. 2 people are already waiting. They were all skinny black men, not very tall, with skin that was black and dark. They knew they were skilled at farming, and at this moment, they were staring eagerly at the dirt road outside the village entrance. Compared to the man who went to the ground early to dig and eat, Lin Fan was obviously as spirited as Jade, because he was the only child in the family, and coupled with his weak and sickly body, his father did not let him do any work. He also had to read for a few years. It's also because of this. When he stood in the queue, he had a strong sense of standing out from the crowd. Just waiting here. At the end of the dirt road, a group of people slowly walked over. Leading the way was a middle-aged Sun Yang, dressed in a festive red dress, holding a palace fan in her hand, twisting her big buttocks as she walked, with a graceful expression that looked full of flavor. This is exactly the Yun Yang mentioned by Uncle Wang, who is responsible for dispatching and releasing his wife. Behind her, following 5 young women, each with a look of anticipation and unease on their faces. The front 2 have big arms and a round waist, typical rural heroines who are easy to raise and can work. But the last 3. But there is another appearance. Not only does it look fair and delicate, but it also has a graceful figure, with a willow waist and a plump grip. Although dressed in linen clothes. But that proud capital has not been concealed. Sleeping trough. Do you still have this kind of good product? Lin Fan thought that the wives who were distributed were just like modern subsistence allowances, some unwanted crooked melons and cracked dates, to be taken over by honest people from poor families. But never expected. Among them, there are top-notch products. And there are still 3. Yun Yang, you can count it. The middle-aged man, who was called Uncle Wang by Lin Fan, welcomed the team with a smile. There was a delay on the way. I'm sorry, Mr. Wang. Yun Yang smiled sweetly and replied, although she was not young, she was full of charm. Uncle Wang chuckled and loudly said, "It's okay. Alright, to make a long story short, there has been a lot of delay. Let's start selecting first." Yun Yang gently fanned the fan on her hand and then looked at Lin Fan and others. "This is the eligible man in your village this year, isn't it? There are fewer than before." "Well, this year it's just the 3 of them." Uncle Wang smiled and nodded. "Okay, then let's choose." Yun Yang also nodded and then ordered 5 women to come forward. When he saw 3 women with graceful postures that were completely different from the village women, the 2 black men who also chose their wives had straight eyes, both filled with longing. But looking at the waist and slender arms of the 3 women, they finally gritted their teeth and turned their heads, pointing towards the other 2 sturdy women. Although Dalong has a wife, he has to pay a head tax, and for every additional person, he has to pay an additional tax. The more people in the family, the more they make friends. Under the pressure of the government, all but the dead must pay taxes. No one can make an exception. In this era, it is difficult for the people to live. If you choose a shoulder that cannot withstand and a waist that cannot be carried back, they are already struggling to survive. Just wait for death. Between living and beauty, people can only choose to live first. 2 suitable ones were selected, and the remaining 3 were unsuitable ones. Uncle Wang frowned when he saw the 3 daughters and said to Yun Yang, "Is it just the 3 of them? Is there anything else? My nephew is weak and our family cannot afford to support idlers." These words are all implicit. Since Lin Fan's old father passed away, he can't continue to be happy. If there were another idle person, this whole family has to starve to death. And even if you starve to death, you can still get liberation. I'm afraid I won't be able to pay the head tax. In Dalong, the punishment of not being able to pay the head tax is very terrifying. The man directly infiltrated into slavery and forced into the army. Women are sold into brothels and become prostitutes, creating income and opening up resources for the country. In the words of the government, Dalong does not raise people of no value. This is not just talk, even the emperor himself has to pay a poll tax. Wang Li's words fell behind. Yun Yang had not spoken yet, but the remaining 3 women were anxious. This is their last trip today, and before that, they had already been defeated countless times. If there is still no candidate for them today, they will be labeled as worthless to Dalong and forcibly sold into brothels to generate revenue for Dalong. As a legitimate woman, sold into a brothel to pick up customers. This is even more uncomfortable than killing them. But in reality, even if they commit suicide, they dare not, because if they dare to commit suicide, the rest of the family will be implicated, with men being conscripted and women being sold into brothels. So the only way is to marry yourself off. Otherwise, fate is tragic. Young master, choose me. I can do anything and listen to you. Young master, you still choose me. I can do anything and eat less. Young master. The three women were eager to compete, fearing that they would lose and become brothel women. Lin Fan was momentarily speechless. In the past, a woman of this quality, let alone rushing to deliver it to her door, even if she asks for it, she won't be able to come. But the other party was eager to make various promises, almost kneeling down for him. Even if he wants to, the other party will definitely kneel down for him, pouting their big buttocks and crying. What are you doing? What are you doing? Go back and stand up for me. Yin Yang scolded with a cold expression on her face, and the two Yamen attendants who followed behind to suppress the formation drew their swords with a swish. The three women turned pale upon seeing this and were so scared that they agreed and dared not speak. But the pitiful tearful eyes kept looking at Lin Fan, with a pleading expression in their eyes. All right, hurry up and choose. This batch is the only one this year, there's nothing else. Yin Yang arranged for 3 daughters and then smiled again at Lin Fandao. But Lin Fan remained silent for a moment. Faced with the plea of the 3 women, he naturally wanted to save them all from the sea of suffering. Could Dalong's head tax? He also knows. In his current situation, it is difficult to support himself. Add 3 more. It is definitely a life of exile. Dalong does not refuse you to choose more wives, and even wishes you could choose more. Because the more choices you make, the more you have to pay the head tax. It's not just about paying the normal 3 people, but it has to be added proportionally. 3 daughters-in-law. Absolutely more than 3 people have a head tax. This is aimed at the wealthy, specifically collecting the wool of those wealthy gentry. However, even wealthy families with a solid foundation cannot withstand the burden of this method of head tax. Can be a modern good man. I can't see Miss shedding tears. And also, he really wants everything. What should we do? Ding dong. Detecting the host's difficulties, the matching system starts to activate, getting married and getting rich, and the multi-child and multi-happiness system officially serves the host. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. I Want Everything. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. I Want Everything, System. Lin Fan was surprised but not surprised by the sudden arrival of the system. As a traveler, the system can be said to be standard. However, this system of getting married and becoming rich, with many children and blessings, left him somewhat confused. How about it? Getting married and having children can still lead to wealth. Ding dong. This system is tailored for the host, please do not doubt the system's ability, oh ha. It's quite intelligent. Lin Fan felt a bit amused upon hearing this. Compared to other high cooling systems, this one is quite considerate and intelligent. Okay, let's talk about your benefits. Lin Fan said with meaning in his mind. The system is not grinding. Upon hearing this command, immediately pour out a stream of information. This information is not complicated. In no time, Lin Fan roughly understood the effectiveness of his system. Same as the system name. He can really marry and become rich, and the more descendants he has, the more blessings he will have. Just get married. You can receive various rewards. From the most direct form of money, to various skills and items that can lead to wealth. Having children can also bring blessings to one's luck, and if there are enough, one can find money even when going out. and turn misfortune into good fortune. All good things happen to him, while bad things stay away. Even if it happens, they can turn danger into danger, and even turn into good things. This is really amazing. In modern society, such system requirements may still pose considerable difficulty. After all, modern distribution is based on quantity. You can't marry too many. Can be found in the Dalong Dynasty. This is a completely good thing. Are these 3 beautiful women in front of me crying and waiting for me to marry? Previously, there were concerns about not being able to pay the head tax. With the system in place, do you still need to worry about this? If we can't even solve this, the system will also be disabled. Lin Fan, as a traveler, should go to the border with peace of mind and become a soldier. He will die early and be reincarnated. Young man, what are you thinking? Choose quickly. If you don't choose, you'll get next year. The words urged by Yunyang came, pulling Lin Fan out of his thoughts. Iron Pillar kids, this batch is not very good, why don't you wait for next year? At this moment, Wang Lichang also spoke up. He was most familiar with the situation of the Lin Fan family. Choosing such a woman to go there, the next time the head tax was paid, there was a high possibility that she would be pulled into exile. He has a good relationship with Lin Fan and his father Lin Taizhu. Watching Lin Fan grow up from a young age, he naturally does not want his deceased friend's only heir to become the fate of exile. If it had been before, Lin Fan could really listen to advice. But now Lin Fan smiled and looked directly at Yunyang, asking, Sister Yunyang, can I choose all of them? Choose all. Yunyang was stunned on the spot at the words. Are you crazy? Wang Lichang's eyes widened even more. The 2 black men who had chosen their wives beside them looked at Lin Fan with disbelief. This is not crazy. Dare to say such words. Choose 3 women. This is indeed possible, and all the people of Dalong have this right. The head tax that 3 women have to pay cannot even be borne by ordinary wealthy households. Given the situation of Lin Fan's family being surrounded by disciples, choosing one to go back is enough. 3. This is seeking death. Is that okay? Lin Fan ignored everyone's reactions, and his current situation is no different from choosing 1 or 3. If the system is not functioning, he couldn't afford to pay the poll tax even if he chose one, so he decided to go for it. Moreover, the 3 delicate and beautiful women are so pitiful. As a warm-hearted man, how could he bear not to give each other a reliable home? There is no Virgin Mary. A good man must dare to fight. Do you really want to select all? Yunyang hesitated to confirm. 3 pitiful girls were also staring blankly. They thought that Lin Fan would choose one of them, but they didn't expect it to be a complete election. Yes, select all. Lin Fan's expression remained steadfast. Sure. Yunyang nodded and replied, We, Dalong, do not refuse to make multiple choices, but we have to remind you that if you choose 3 women, it is not enough to pay the head tax for them, it needs to be stacked. I know that. Lin Fan nodded to show understanding. I know you still chose 3, confused. Wang Lichang angrily scolded and looked at Lin Fan with a resentful gaze. Lin Fan felt somewhat helpless about this, but it was difficult to explain how. I can't say, can I get married and become rich? Don't be labeled as an outlier, take it to the market and burn it. Yunyang spoke again and said, Since you already know, I won't say much. I have brought the marriage letter with me. If there is no objection, let's make a bet on it. From now on, the 3 of them will be your wife. The government allocates wives. There are not so many rules and regulations. Marriage letters and other things are all taken with you. If you choose to make a bet on the marriage letter, the 2 of you will be considered successful. Take your daughter-in-law home to the bridal chamber on the spot, and there will be no such thing as a banquet. Except for wealthy families getting married, there may be some arrangements that ordinary people do not have. These women who need to be allocated also bring their belongings when they go out, and the baggage hanging behind them is their belongings. They are allocated to their husband's house and do not even need to return home. It has to be said. This is very user-friendly. Okay. Lin Fan responded and went up to prepare to draw an inscription on the marriage certificate. Elder Wang, upon seeing this, intends to stop it again. But Yun Yang, who was responsible for allocation, turned her gaze sideways. The lady has been properly allocated, which is the performance of her profession as Yun Yang. Although she cannot be fully allocated and can be sent to brothels, it is a backup option, and if pursued, her performance will be deducted. Now someone is willing to take over everything, which is a big good thing for her. Normal advice is fine. Forcefully stop. The charge of obstructing the execution of court orders is absolutely impossible to escape. Upon seeing this, Chief Wang could only grit his teeth and stop moving. With a final sigh. It's okay, just go ahead. He sighed and shook his head, then turned around and returned to the village, without looking again. No one stopped it. Lin Fan smoothly drew a signature on the marriage certificate. I pressed 3 times at once. And the system prompt sound also sounded 3 times. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host for successfully getting married and receiving the reward of the lively dragon and tiger pill ding dong. Congratulations to the host for successfully getting married and receiving a reward of reaching the level of blacksmith skill ding dong. Congratulations to the host for successfully getting married and receiving a reward for the tiger fighting fist in the mountain. 3 consecutive reward prompt sound, each of which is a skill or item that can make you rich. And when Lin Fan heard this prompt, he also showed a knowing smile. But now is not the time to claim rewards. Take the 3 pretty women home first. Let's go, madam. Follow me home. The first time Lin Fan spoke to the 3rd woman, he immediately took her home. Shout home as soon as you speak. This is absolutely unimaginable in modern times. But the 3rd woman did not refuse, obediently following behind with gratitude on her face. Regardless of whether Lin Fan can pay the head tax next time they pay taxes, at least for now, they don't have to be taken to brothels. Moreover, Lin Fan's appearance also meets their criteria for choosing a partner. Compared to those rough men, I don't know how much better they are, and I don't mind them. No matter what happens in the future. At least it's worth it now. I believe it in my heart. Lin Fan is their husband. This may seem absurd in modern times, but it is very normal in Dalong. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Marriage Rewards. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Marriage Rewards. Lin Fan's family is located on the edge of the village, surrounded by only his family. That's why. The first reason is that Lin Fan's father, who is an outsider, fled and came here. The second one is Lin Fan's father. As a blacksmith, he usually needs to knock and strike, and being too close to other households can affect their daily lives. When he settled down, he chose the edge of the village. There is a small stream flowing by the door, surrounded by various wild flowers, which look like birds singing and flowers fragrant. However, regardless of the external environment, it is impossible to conceal the fact that one's family is alone. When the 3 women saw the situation of their husband's family, their expressions all turned white, but soon they gritted their teeth and became firm again. Lin Fan has actually been paying attention to the 3 women, and when he saw their reactions, he nodded slightly. The system is reliable. Supporting the family is not a problem. It depends on whether the wife is in place or not. The reactions of these wives have not disappointed him now. As for the deeper level, we can only slowly get along and take a look later. Ladies, this is your husband's home, and it will also be your home in the future. Lin Fan pushed open the courtyard door and brought the 3 women in. Yes, my husband. The third woman didn't adapt well and her face turned slightly rosy at this moment. Cough, please rest in the hall first, and my husband will go and cook for you. Lin Fan coughed lightly upon seeing this and decided to entertain the ladies, so that everyone could get to know each other well, which could be considered a wedding banquet for a few people. Although it is somewhat rudimentary. However, there still needs to be a ceremony. But as soon as the women heard this, they all quickly spoke up and said, "How can we keep our husband busy? Let's do it. Hurry up and grab work. Do you dare to think about it in modern times?" But now it is indeed the case, and the three are still fighting together. Lin Fan used to complain about his travels, but now he just wants to say something really fragrant. However, he planned to use the excuse of cooking to deal with his own system rewards, so as not to let the three women destroy him. He directly forced them to sit down and wait, and went to the kitchen on his own. The three women saw this. Naturally, one cannot avoid being moved. Lin Fan can only sigh that the girls in this world are too innocent. With a slight shake of his head, he arrived at the kitchen and began his business. System, claim the first reward. Lin Fan silently recited the command system. Ding dong. Rewards are now being distributed. The system prompted the sound, followed by a red pill that appeared out of thin air in Lin Fan's hand. Dragon and Tiger Pill. The name is very simple and rough. Eating it can strengthen the body and give you a lively physique. Originally, Lin Fan was a bit worried. After all, he married 3 daughters-in-law at once, but his body was naturally weak. Not to mention 3, none of them might be able to cultivate well. The reward of the Dragon and Tiger Pill can be described as a timely rain. No second words. Lin Fan started directly. Danmuru down the stomach. The entrance is instant. Boom. Like a thunderbolt exploding inside his body, Lin Fan's body began to undergo drastic changes. First, my whole body swelled up, like a balloon being blown to its maximum. Next is pain. Endless pain, as if bones and flesh are restructuring. Pain, it hurts too much. Lin Fan almost couldn't help but shout out. But in the next moment, it felt comfortable again, as if wandering in a damp and slippery place. This pain is refreshing. It's like a world of ice and fire. This is a long story. Actually, it will only take a while. When the efficacy receded, Lin Fan regained control of his body. From the appearance, he remained unchanged, still looking so fair and weak. But in reality, he was full of vitality and seemed to have an endless amount of strength, wanting to vent his frustrations. It's truly a product of the system, and it's not an exaggeration to say it's an elixir. Lin Fan experienced some physical changes and couldn't help but feel emotional, looking forward to the next 2 rewards even more. Full-level blacksmith skill. This is quite in line with his ancestral profession. After all, his father in this world is an old blacksmith. He has ready-made ironing tools and stoves at home and can work at any time. The profession of blacksmith. Perhaps the title is not very well known. But skilled blacksmiths are very popular and even sought after. The legendary god-level blacksmith is one of the representative characters. The current emperor of the Dalong Dynasty, Emperor Longwu, often resorted to external military activities, which led to a strong emphasis on martial arts among the people and a prevailing trend of chivalry. Some swordsmen with high martial arts skills often come and go, fighting fiercely, and are very fond of various sharp weapons. Some famous divine weapons are even purchased by these heroes at the cost of $1,000. If you can craft sharp weapons, you will still worry about not having money. Not to mention that wealth can rival a country, but paying a mere head tax is not a problem. There are also no second words. Lin Fan quickly claimed this reward. Compared to swallowing pills to change his physique, the skill of this full-level blacksmith is much simpler, with only a pile of information appearing in his mind. The whole process was a bit painful, but with the comparison just now, it's not a problem at all. In an instant, he seemed to have come to a special space and undergone countless years of forging. From the simplest agricultural iron tools, to the sharp weapons among various cold weapons, and even many hidden mechanisms and weapons are involved. In just an instant, he felt like he had gone through countless years, and when he came back to his senses, his entire demeanor changed. The furnace his father used to forge iron tools was not far from the kitchen. Before, he was very unfamiliar with these forging tools, as he was weak and sickly and did not inherit them. But now, when he looked at these forging tools again, he had a feeling of blending like water. It seems like the most ordinary iron block, he can unleash sharp divine weapons. Getting married and becoming rich, there are indeed no false claims in it. Just the skill of this full-level blacksmith is enough to prevent me from continuing to feel embarrassed, and this is just the beginning. If I continue to get married in the future, I will definitely be even more powerful than I am now. Lin Fan couldn't help but sigh again. The system is truly a necessary counter-attack golden finger for travelers, and this is truly not disappointing. Suppressing the urge to immediately burn the furnace and create a divine weapon, he continued to receive the third reward from the system. The first is to make up for his physical shortcomings and give him the capital for revolution. The second skill is the ability to settle down and live, allowing him to marry without any worries. The third one is known by its name as a means of self-protection. In a dynasty where martial arts were prevalent, although great wealth and nobility were good, without the ability to protect them, not only would they fail to live a good life, but they would also lead to unimaginable accidents. After all, robbing the rich to help the poor is the most prevalent among these heroes. Whether you are a villain or not. As long as you have wealth, you are synonymous with being rich and ruthless. Otherwise, those heroes who don't engage in production wouldn't have spent so much money. And he has so many beautiful women. According to the current pace, there will be more and more in the future, and there may be some flower-picking thieves coveting him. If you don't have the ability to protect yourself, there will definitely be trouble coming to your door in the future. The system's marriage reward this time can be said to be quite thoughtful. Very good. Smile and praise. He accepted the third reward. Using the same routine, his thoughts once again came to a special space, where he was like an incarnation of Wusong, either fighting tigers or on his way to fight tigers every day. Go up the mountain and fight Tiger Fist. This is really the boxing technique as its name suggests, it's really constantly fighting tigers. However, although this name may be a bit rough, tigers can use their boxing techniques to directly hit and lie down, and how this boxing technique can be imagined. Wusong gained great fame because he killed a tiger. There happened to be 3 female tigers at home. Let's have a good practical experience once we have dinner. Lin Fan smiled and clenched his fist, staring at the 3 female tigers he had just brought home. Thinking and thinking. He began to itch. With this energy, he killed the only remaining hen in his family who lay eggs and began to hold his first wedding banquet. A very simple wedding banquet. But it moved the bride even more than modern wedding banquets that cost tens or millions. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Husband is really kind. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Husband is really kind. A pot of stewed chicken soup. A large bowl of yellowed millet rice. But it made the 3 women cry directly. Hey, why are you crying? Lin Fan was preparing to eat, but suddenly saw his wife crying. This is feeling wronged. Still homesick? No, we are too touched. Your husband, you have been so kind to us. The 3 women's voices were choking up. They thought that with their own conditions, even if there were candidates, they would still be some rough men, even widows, and there would be no future. But now, not only is her husband gentle and elegant, but she is also very kind to herself and others. Lin Fan laughed and said, Hey, what did I think it was? What's so touching about it? Since I'm your husband, shouldn't I treat you well? My family is simple, as long as you don't mind. Marry 3 daughters-in-law and go home. Not only does it lack any grandeur, but it also lacks decent meals. On the entire table, there is only a large plate of old hen stewed soup. This thing, in modern times, it has long been criticized harshly. Even in the difficult ancient times, it was still a bit shabby. After all, this is getting married. Don't mind, don't mind. The 3 women shook their heads repeatedly and said, if my husband doesn't mind our graceful demeanor like a willow, how could my concubine and others dislike us? Ha! That's good, hurry up and eat. I believe you've been hungry all the way. Lin Fan smiled and said. The bride who is about to be distributed will walk through the village and town, but it is a physical labor, not hungry is fake. Not to mention that the 3 women have been rejected countless times, I don't know how many places they have traveled. Well, husband, you should eat first. The tallest young lady among them shyly picked vegetables for Lin Fan. You guys eat too. Lin Fan nodded happily and greeted his 3 daughters-in-law. How difficult it is to marry a wife in modern times. But in just a few days, he took 3 daughters-in-law from home. And each one is as beautiful as a flower, with a consistent figure. After a meal, Lin Fan gradually became acquainted with the 3 young ladies. The daughter-in-law with the highest figure among them, named Yi Xiaoro, has a gentle and considerate personality, with a faint elegant demeanor. She used to have a good family background, but unfortunately fell through. Plus encountering some disasters. She's the only one left now. The other 2 daughters-in-law, one named Su Xiaoxiao, although not as tall and graceful as Yi Xiaoro, have a broad mind and a generous demeanor. The last one, Wang Nan, has distinct characteristics compared to the first 2. She is simpler, but with a delicate baby fat face that looks only 10 years old, and a small and delicate body, she can give people a different experience. The 3 daughters-in-law each have their own strengths. So beautiful. Being able to marry one is a blessing for 3 lives, but now I have married 3 at once. Lin Fan once again sighed at how extraordinary this world is. In the area of the traveler, he should be the happiest one. Have a meal while chatting. Originally, it was still noon for dinner. But by the time the 4 of them finished eating and chatting, it was already time for the sun to set in the west. When you tidy up the dishes, the sky approaches dusk. The sky in the mountain village darkens quickly. After the sun sets, the night quietly engulfs the mountain village. Lin Fan comes from a poor family and doesn't have much lighting. In the entire house, there is only a candle in the bedroom where Lin Fan is resting for illumination. The 3 women cleaned up their personal hygiene and were taken into the bedroom by Lin Fan. When I saw that there was only one bed in the entire bedroom and not even a chair to sit on, I blushed with embarrassment. Are we going to sleep together? But isn't this too boring and flustered? 3 women serving one husband together is not a big deal in Dalong. Many wealthy and powerful individuals only know how to have more at home. Can be slept with. This makes people shy. However, before they could speak up, Lin Fan said with self-blame, 3 ladies, our family is poor, and we only have this bed for now. I have wronged you all. Seeing Lin Fan's reproachful expression, the 3 women immediately ignored their shyness and shook their heads together, saying, it's our honor not to be wronged. My husband doesn't mind being a concubine and others. This sentence is not a lie. If Lin Fan didn't choose them, they should have been taken to the brothel to pick up guests by now. Compared to the terrifying experience of thousands of people tasting a little bit of vermilion lips entering the brothel, their treatment now is much better. Now they have no grievances in their hearts, only deep gratitude towards their husbands. They even have a plan in mind. If they really can't afford to pay the head tax and their husband is conscripted, they will commit suicide together and pay tribute to their husband. Anyway, they got married and there is only one person in the husband's family, so there's no need to worry about involving others. Madam, you are so kind. Lin Fan opened his hands and embraced the 3 women in his arms. Holding 3 young women at once and smelling 3 different body fragrances, this feeling can be said to be excellent. Ladies, it's already late at night. Why don't we go into the bridal chamber? Lin Fan looked at the 3 women and said. The 3 women blushed and lowered their heads, but did not refuse. They let out a gentle hum. Lin Fan was full of energy, blowing out the candles from the distance and carrying the women to the bed one by one. Tonight, it is destined to be a sleepless night. Sleepless all night. Until the next day at sunrise. Lin Fan Kai emerged from the battlefield. Oh no, he opened his eyes on the bed and stretched lazily. The beautiful woman on the side is no longer there. But the messy bed was tidied up. This is what life is all about. Lin Fan is completely refreshed and refreshed. The dragon and tiger pill is truly a divine pill rewarded by the system. Compared to today, in modern times for so many years, it is simply a waste of time. This is what life is all about. Anyway, we must maintain our current life well. Lin Fan lay in bed pondering and sighing, and then made a firm decision with a determined expression. With determination. He quickly got up from bed, ready to embark on his great career of becoming rich. If he wants to maintain his current life, the head tax is an unavoidable issue. Only by solving this problem can he live a good life with his beautiful women. Of course, I want to be happier in the future. We must also solve this problem. The skill with system rewards is not a big problem. Come outside the door. Lin Fan saw his 3 women, each busy and hardworking. One is cooking in the kitchen. One is cleaning clothes. A person is reclaiming land in the yard, wanting to cultivate vegetable fields and grow some crops. The 3 women each performed their duties without any arguments and lived in harmony. On the face, they all carry a color of happiness. No matter what the future holds, at least they are happy now. And when Lin Fan saw this scene, his heart became even more determined. Husband, are you up? Yi Xiaoro was hanging clothes when she saw Lin Fan and said happily. The other 2 women also smiled, and the 2 sides truly got to know each other and became husband and wife. Well, get up, ladies have all worked hard. Lin Fan greeted with a smile. Husband, wait a moment. You can eat soon. Su Xiaoxiao, who has a broad mind, is worthy of having sufficient rations and is responsible for cooking at home. Okay. Lin Fan nodded again and then walked to the blacksmith's furnace on one side of the yard. There are smelting tools here, as well as some semi-finished iron farming tools and some charcoal. Overall, it is somewhat rudimentary. However, with Lin Fan's full-level blacksmith skills, these are not a big problem. Picking up the tinder that ignited the fire, Lin Fan lit the stove. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Forging. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Forging. Husband, are you going to forge iron tools? The little lady Wang Nan Nan, who had roughly flipped through the ground, walked forward and asked curiously. Lin Fan nodded and said, yes, we're ready to forge a universal long sword. Wow! Your husband is so amazing, he can even forge a long sword. Upon hearing this, Wang Nan Nan exclaimed, there used to be a blacksmith in the village who used to make agricultural iron tools for some village names, such as hoes and sickles. At most, she would only use a plow. Swords and other things. She has never seen it crafted before. Because the quality required for swords far exceeds that of agricultural iron tools, ordinary blacksmiths do not have the ability to forge them. After all, one is for fighting and the other is for doing farm work. There is a fundamental difference between the two. Although Wang Nan Nan doesn't understand these things, she is naturally very proud that her husband has achieved things that others cannot. That must be impressive. Lin Fan smirked and scraped off the delicate nose of his own young lady, which came from the admiration of his wife and naturally made people feel happy both physically and mentally. Hee, my husband is really amazing. Wang Nan has a lively personality, and her affectionate movements immediately make her eyes smile, like two curved crescents. Husband, can you really forge swords and knives? At this moment, Yi Xiaoro, as the eldest lady, walked over with excitement. Yes. Lin Fan naturally understood the other party's thoughts, and from his once wealthy family, he naturally understood more than Wang Nan from an ordinary family what forging a sword represented. I won't say anything else. The most deadly issue at home, the head tax, will no longer be a fatal one. Received confirmation. Yi Xiaoro shed tears directly. Oh, big sister, why are you crying? Wang Nan was not clear about the situation and felt a bit confused when she saw this scene. It's okay, your older sister is happy. Lin Fan put down his work and stepped forward to gently wipe away his wife's tears. Don't worry, since I brought you back, I will definitely take good care of you and won't let you suffer any more injustice. Lin Fan comforted his daughter. In law and gave his promise along the way. Yi Xiaoro nodded repeatedly. Her personality is considered the most resilient. After all, she has experienced family downturns, but she is also the softest. After all, she has no reliance in this world. It's time for dinner. Su Xiaoxiao's voice came, indicating that everyone's food had already been prepared. Let's eat first. Xiao has already prepared the meal, we'll discuss the rest later. Lin Fan comforted again, washed his hands, and led his two daughters-in-law to the hall inside the house. Yesterday's old hen stew still had some leftovers, paired with some wild vegetables picked at the doorstep. Overall it was quite rich. In modern times, it may not be much. But in the difficult Dalong Dynasty, this was already considered the standard for the Chinese New Year. Everyone sat down to eat. After eating almost, Su Xiaoxiao hesitated and said, Husband, there's not much food left at home, and there's not much salt left. Don't worry, I will handle these things well, and the same goes for the head tax. With your husband around, everything is not a problem. Lin Fan didn't wait for his second wife to finish speaking before he spoke again to comfort her. There are too many daughters-in-law, we need to say the same thing a few times. It's quite troublesome. However, Lin Fan enjoyed it. After all, this kind of troublesome matter cannot be sought by many male compatriots. Eat and drink enough. Lin Fan didn't talk much, now what he says is just empty talk, and what he does is the truth. Returning to the blacksmith's room, Lin Fan poured all the remaining charcoal into the stove. The things here have not been used for a while, and the large iron hammers used for smelting have become rusty and mottled. Ordinary blacksmiths face such conditions, not to mention forging swords and knives, but also dealing with some agricultural tools, which is enough. However, Lin Fan is a full-level blacksmith. With the help of the system, he has forged countless divine weapons in a special space. It is not an exaggeration to say that he is a legendary divine craftsman. Even if the conditions are simple, forging some high-quality swords is not a problem. But it's just a high-quality sword, he can't forge it even if it's too good. After all, the conditions are not only simple, the carbon used for smelting is only charcoal, far less than the high temperature of coal. There is also forged metal at home, and only a few semi-finished hose. It is impossible to forge divine weapons with such raw materials. A clever woman cooks without rice. This is not just talk. However, being able to forge high-quality swords is definitely enough. After all, in the martial arts world of Dalong, weapons have always been the most popular. Husband, I'll show you the fire. Su Xiaoxiao returned to her job and watched the fire on the stove for Lin Fan. When she needed to heat up, she forcefully pulled the bellows. Yi Xiaoro and Wang Nan are playing with each other, please help them with whatever they need. The three daughters-in-law can be said to have united as one. With the help of 3 daughters-in-law, Lin Fan began the work of forging. First, melt the semi-finished hoe back into the furnace to obtain the required raw metal. Continue to make the mold. When the molten iron was poured into the mold and roughly formed, Lin Fan picked up the large hammer that was being hammered. This thing has a considerable amount of weight. If it were Lin Fan from the past, it might have been difficult to pick it up, let alone go through countless trials and tribulations. But now Lin Fan, riding 3 horses on the battlefield, is tireless, playing with a big hammer or something, just like playing around. A lively dragon or tiger. This is not a joke. 3 daughters-in-law who have been nourished are the best proof. With the addition of a full-level blacksmith skill and the ability to exert force, he was able to forge a large iron hammer with great force and ease in his hands. Clash. First was a heavy hammer, with various sparks splashing everywhere, followed by continuous pounding. The movements may seem light and gentle, but in reality, they are full of strength every time. 1,000 trials and tribulations. When the long sword is quenched in a container, a regular long sword is basically formed. Next, it's just some finishing work. The 3 daughters-in-law were all watching from the side, mesmerized. While others were making iron, they thought it was crude, but their own husband was also making iron, and they found it pleasing to the eye. Despite his slender figure and lack of rough and spirited muscles, he looks like a graceful scholar, yet he is full of strength. In the eyes of 3 eyes, there was admiration. "Husband, you look really good." Wang Nan couldn't help but feel a little overwhelmed. Her baby's plump and pretty face was rosy and cute. "You look great too." Lin Fan also smiled and praised, then looked at the other 2 daughter-in-law and said, "Of course you are also very good looking. They are all heavenly fairies." The 3 women gave a shy smile. They feel frivolous when praised by others, but when praised by their own husbands, they are happy with love in their eyes. Ancient women, it's just so simple and pure. Time flies by quickly. When the long sword completed the quenching process, the outside sky darkened again. "I can't finish it today." However, Lin Fan is not in a hurry. After all, there is still some time to pay the head tax next time. Putting away the semi-finished long sword, Lin Fan took a comfortable bath and had a simple dinner under the care of his 3 daughters-in-law. The color turned completely black that day. Lin Fan loosened his belt and led his somewhat shy daughters into the only bedroom at home. In ancient society, there were no entertainment programs at night, and one could only endure a bitter and charming wife. This time, both sides are familiar with the road. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Going out to sell swords. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Going out to sell swords. The next day. The sky is hazy and bright. Lin Fan got up from the bed. Looking at the sleeping beauty beside him, his struggle index was directly boosted. Upon arriving at the blacksmith's room, he proceeded with the remaining steps of processing the semi-finished long sword. The full-level blacksmith skill makes these processes very smooth from start to finish, and there are no major problems throughout the entire process. Although due to certain conditions, this forged long sword has some flaws, it is not as bad as the ones sold outside. "Husband, you wake up so early." Su Xiao, who was in charge of kitchen work, was originally the earliest to wake up, but when she got up to prepare for cooking, Lin Fan had been up for a long time. "I haven't finished the finishing work yet, so I woke up a bit early today." Lin Fan looked up at his drowsy wife and answered with a smile. "Husband, thank you for your hard work. Xiao will make breakfast for you right away." Su Xiao felt a little distressed and said that she was not a fool. She naturally understood why her husband was working so hard. The combined head tax of 3 daughters-in-law at home can be described as a huge mountain. There are also living expenses, which is also not a small amount. And all of this, the pressure is all on Lin Fan alone. Although they all avoided and didn't want to put pressure on their husbands, they didn't understand how much pressure there was in their hearts. Well, then I'll trouble you. Lin Fan was doing the final polishing and nodded with a gentle smile upon hearing the words. The curling smoke rises. Soon, the daughters-in-law, big and small, also got up. Seeing their husbands busy early, they were both moved and heartbroken. What's wrong? I feel like crying when I wake up early in the morning. Lin Fan saw that his two daughters-in-law had red eyes and naturally understood what each other was thinking, so he immediately pretended to be joking. Well, I feel like crying. Wang Nan has a lively and innocent personality, and she answers jokes honestly. Is that possible? I don't like to coax people in the morning, I cry at night. Lin Fan said with a wicked smile. Why? Innocent Wang Nan was puzzled, but Yi Xiaoro beside her blushed with beauty. I'll let you know later tonight. Lin Fan raised his eyebrows and planned to focus on the other person tonight, to make them understand why crying at night can be soothing. At this moment, Su Xiaoxiao finished breakfast and the three of them ended the topic. Have a simple breakfast. Lin Fan spoke up and said, I'll go out later. You guys stay at home and wait for me to come back. Does your husband want to sell swords? Yi Xiaoro is naturally intelligent and has a wide range of knowledge. She immediately understood what her husband was planning to do. Lin Fan nodded slightly, but his heart was a bit hesitant. This is indeed selling swords. But this statement sounds a bit awkward, but without much thought, he gave a few simple instructions and picked up the forged long sword. Because there is no material and no scabbard made, the long sword is wrapped in an old cloth and looks like a burning stick, very rough. It's just a facade. If it is a regular item, it is difficult to sell at an ideal price. However, Lin Fan is very confident, and can even be said to have full confidence. Full-level blacksmith skill, this is definitely a divine craftsman level. Even if the material is limited, the forged product is still a rare treasure. Husband, be careful on the way. The three daughters-in-law were delivered to the door, with worried eyes in their eyes. The current world is not peaceful, and throwing corpses in the wilderness is a normal thing. Some fierce beasts, it is also a great threat to passers-by. Don't worry, your husband is very powerful and nothing will happen. Lin Fan waved his hand in relief, then carried his forged long sword, prepared dry food and drinking water with his wives, and walked out of his own house, preparing to go to the county town 50 miles away. 50 miles of land. If it is the body before receiving the system reward, even if there is no danger, it is still challenging to finish walking. However, for Lin Fan, who is now full of vitality, it can be said to be effortless. Just before he could reach the village entrance, he was stopped by two men with joking faces. Lin Fan, I heard you brought back 3 beautiful women to be women. You didn't go out all day yesterday. Aren't you afraid to die in bed? Yeah, Lin Fan, just like a bird that can easily collapse in the wind, don't really die. Two men blocked the way and spoke casually. What's your concern? Lin Fan frowned slightly, and a cold light flickered through his pupils. He is not unfamiliar with the two people in front of him. It can even be said that they are very familiar, all within the same village. One is named Wang Fa, the son of a small landlord in the village, and the other is Wang Ergu, who is the nephew of the village chief. Because their families have some financial resources, they don't have to go to the fields every day to dig for food like ordinary people, idle around all day, and do some sneaky things. Abbreviated as Gai Liuzi. As an outsider, Lin Fan's family is often bullied by these two scammers in front of them, from childhood to adulthood. Because the original protagonist had a weak physique and couldn't resist being bullied, he had to admit defeat and avoid as far as possible. It was also because of this weak performance that they became even more reckless. As long as it touches, they will all play a prank. Anyone who dares to resist will inevitably face them with punches and kicks. A few days ago, Lin Fan brought back 3 beautiful women, which immediately made them unhappy. Seeing Lin Fan living such a happy life like useless firewood is even more painful for them than their unhappiness. Also because of this, they have been blocking Lin Fan from going out these past 2 days. As for breaking into the house, they don't have the courage yet. After all, according to the laws of Dalong, breaking into someone else's house without permission would result in exile and exile if caught. Now that Dalong is fighting every year, what good outcome can be achieved by conscription? However, they did not expect that Lin Fan had not gone out for 2 full days and had been staying in the gentle countryside, which made them even more unhappy. Today we finally caught them, and naturally there is no possibility of them doing good anymore. I didn't think about anything, I was just afraid that you would die in bed and make your old Lin family stand out. Tall and from the landlord's house, Wang Fa said with a sneer. Wang Ergu, who didn't go up, agreed. Brother Fa said, well, don't be the last one. Get out. While I'm not angry, advise you two to get out as far as possible. Lin Fan's gaze turned cold. If it weren't for something serious to do, he wouldn't mind avenging the bullying on the original owner today. Oh ha. After marrying a lady, my tone has actually become bigger. It's itchy, isn't it? Wang Ergu rolled up his sleeves and planned to follow the usual procedure. However, he was stopped by Wang Fa and looked at Lin Fan, saying, Lin Fan, today our brothers are not asking you trouble, but want to kindly remind you of something. Remind me of something. Lin Fan was somewhat confused upon hearing this. That's right. Wang Fa nodded and said, the next time the government collects head tax, it hasn't been long. With your conditions, you definitely can't afford to pay it. So today, your 2 brothers will show you the way. Would you be so kind? Lin Fan sneered and accepted the memory of the original owner, unaware of their virtues. Hee, look at what you're saying. Brother, when did we have a bad heart? Wang Fa smiled mischievously and said, actually, this clear path is very simple. Isn't it that you bring back 3 beautiful women? With your physique, you can't use them all. Why don't you take 2 out to pick up guests? As long as you make your brothers happy, we can introduce more customers to you in the future, and the head tax is still a matter. Phage said it well, hee. As long as we enjoy it. Wang Ergo wanted to agree again, but before he could finish speaking, a fist the size of a clay pot came over, killing one of his teeth and causing him to scream in agony. You want to die? Wang Fa was furious when he saw this, and this little trash dared to resist. It's you who seek death. Lin Fan's face completely turned cold, and if it were just targeted at him, he might still endure something serious to do. But humiliating his wives, even a man can't bear it. Let his wife come out to pick up guests, what is this treating him and his wife like? The body of the lively dragon and tiger began to exert strength, constantly using the tiger fist when going up the mountain. At first, the 2 of them wanted to fight back. After a few punches, the opponent would have to scream and beg for mercy on the ground. This is just a small lesson. If you dare to humiliate my wife in the future, you 2 useless people will definitely pay the price. Seeing the other party completely lying down, Lin Fan said coldly and then turned around to leave. 50 miles, back and forth is a 100-mile journey, but we cannot delay any further. Phage, it seems that this guy has become very capable of fighting. What should he do? Wang Ergu was beaten up hard, and Lin Fan suddenly felt a little scared. Don't worry, I'll go back and tell my older brother that I've never been beaten like this since I was young, and this is definitely not over. Wang Fa spoke with a fierce expression on his face, looking at Lin Fan's departing figure with resentment. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Divine Weapon Pavilion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Divine Weapon Pavilion. Having a lively physique. A 50-mile journey is not too far for Lin Fan. Almost jogging all the way, as the sun passed overhead, he arrived at a city. Tianfeng City. In the corner of Dalong. Overall, it may not be considered bustling, but as the hub of several major cities, there is not much foot traffic. There are guards stationed at the city gate to inspect passers-by. Lin Fan did not carry any goods, and the guards did not stop him from collecting taxes, so he entered smoothly. The streets of Tianfeng City. It unfolds in a cross shape within the city, with various shops, hotels, and hawkers on both sides. Standing on the street. A style of ancient costume TV dramas rushed towards Lin Fan. Baozi, freshly baked meat baozi, if it's not fragrant, it's free. Bingtanghulu, sweet and delicious bingtanghulu, go, go. Where did the beggar come from? Get away from me. All kinds of noise echoed through my ears. No matter where they are, there are steamed buns and bingtanghulu. Of course, beggars are also indispensable. Lin Fan smiled. This is truly inseparable from its roots. However, it has to be said that looking at the delicious meat buns, he also has a strong appetite. I've been walking 50 miles since the morning, and it's fake if my stomach says I'm not hungry. Unfortunately, I have limited funds in my pocket. Let's go sell the sword first. Lin Fan could only suppress his appetite and walk towards the interior of the street. The original owner has visited the county town several times and is not unfamiliar with it. To sell swords and weapons. The intersection within the city can be said to be the most ideal place. Because in that bustling area, there is a shop specializing in weapons business. This shop is the Divine Weapon Pavilion. It is rumored that this Divine Weapon Pavilion has branches in multiple cities of the Dalong Dynasty, and its business is very large. The weapons it sells are highly sought after by countless martial artists in the martial arts world. Even the court. We all have cooperation with them. Lin Fan's intention in forging weapons is to do long-term business, so he naturally has to look for these big merchants. The streets of Tianfengqing are not too long. Before long, Lin Fan arrived at the gate of the Divine Weapon Pavilion. It is truly a big business. This deck is indeed very spacious. Leaving aside the rest, just the facade alone occupies a sufficient area of several acres. This is the busiest street in Tianfeng City, occupying such a large area. The financial resources of the Divine Weapon Pavilion can be imagined from this point. From time to time, people dressed as martial arts heroes come and go, and it seems that business is also quite good. Sir, what do you need to buy? After Lin Fan stopped at the door for a while, a servant dressed in a servant approached politely to inquire. Although Lin Fan didn't look like a wealthy person in his attire, the servant from the Divine Weapon Pavilion didn't show any disdain and instead politely asked. Lin Fan sighed once again. No wonder we can make the business so big. I'm not buying anything, but planning to sell something. Lin Fan nodded kindly to the servant and then spoke out his purpose. Oh, it's selling things. Can you please tell me what you're selling? The servant's smile remained unchanged, as the Divine Weapon Pavilion was so large that there were naturally buyers and sellers. And some divine weapons. If it's not new, it's definitely good. Even after drinking blood, many swords are even more valuable than newly forged ones. For example, the blood-drinking knife, which is widely circulated in the martial arts world, is the treasure of their Divine Weapon Pavilion. Even the commander of the violent organization of the Dalong Dynasty, Zhen Wuxi, intends to purchase it. And this knife. It is the old sword that drinks countless blood. The original Divine Weapon Pavilion was purchased from a retired martial arts hero. I sell a long sword. Lin Fan took off the long package on his back. Take out a long sword. The servant's eyes lit up at the words. Among the martial arts heroes, swords are the most popular. Especially the long sword, in terms of price, it is quite popular. Because those young children who are just starting out love to wear a long sword and fantasize about their martial arts dreams of using it to travel the world. This kind of dull and blue-headed. It's the best-selling price. Half of the performance of the Divine Weapon Pavilion was supported by selling long swords. Please come inside, my guest. I will ask our second shopkeeper to give you an estimate. The servant respectfully made a gesture of invitation. Thank you very much. Lin Fan thanked him and walked into the Divine Weapon Pavilion with the other party. The space inside is very large, and a specially designed weapon rack is filled with various weapons, from common swords to relatively rare axes and halberds, and even long bows and hidden weapons, all of which can be seen inside. However, Lin Fan was not here to buy weapons, so the servant led him to a side room. My guest, please sit down and rest for a while. I'll call our second shopkeeper. The servant arranged for Lin Fan to sit down and bring a cup of tea, then turned around and called for someone. Lin Fan sat on a wooden chair, picked up his forged long sword, and began to dismantle the cloth strips. As for the tea on the table, he had no intention of drinking it. Second shopkeeper, this is the guest who intends to cut off the long sword in his hand. Not long after, the servant who had just left walked in with a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man was dressed in a blue robe, with his long hair meticulously combed. As he walked in, he scrutinized Lin Fan without a trace and finally froze on the long sword in Lin Fan's hand. At first, he looked calm. But as Lin Fan removed all the cloth strips from the package, his gaze lit up. You go out and get busy first. The second shopkeeper waved his hand and sent the servant away, then walked up to Lin Fan and sat down. How do you call this young man? He said with a gentle smile. Lin Fan's expression remained unchanged and he said, selling things in your pavilion, do you still need to check your identity? That's not necessary. The second shopkeeper's smile remained the same. I just saw that the young man is good and I just want to get to know him. Oh, that would be my honor. Lin Fan smiled politely. Where? The second shopkeeper also smiled politely. Seeing that Lin Fan didn't want to reveal his own information, he immediately switched to another topic and asked, are you planning to sell the long sword in your hand, young man? Not bad. Lin Fan nodded and said. Can you take a glance? The second shopkeeper looked at the long sword and asked. Of course you can. Lin Fan handed out his long sword and placed it on the wooden table between the two. The second shopkeeper skillfully picked up the long sword, and as he watched, his gaze became even brighter. Good sword. The second shopkeeper sincerely praised and gently caressed the sword body with his hand. Upon hearing the other person's comment, Lin Fan's lips slightly curved upwards, making it a good sword, at least not inferior to those hanging in the lobby outside. Can you try the sharpness? The second shopkeeper looked up and asked Lin Fan. Please do as you please. Lin Fan raised his hand and nodded. The second shopkeeper received approval and picked up a piece of hardwood next to it. This kind of hardwood, it is specifically designed to test the sharpness and toughness of weapons. Weapons are meant for combat, and if their sharpness and toughness do not meet the standard, they naturally cannot be used. The second shopkeeper has never learned martial arts, but he is very skilled in his hand movements, lifting his sword with a diagonal slash. Prickle. A slight friction sound sounded. Then the specially tested hardwood section easily split into two and fell to the ground. The entire process. There aren't many waves. The incision of the hardwood is as smooth as a mirror, cutting from head to toe. Not bad, not bad. The second shopkeeper once again spoke up and praised. Obviously this test satisfied him very much. Although Lin Fan had full confidence in his technology, he breathed a sigh of relief when he truly saw this scene, knowing that he had made a steady trip. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Getting Married and Getting Rich, System Not Participated in Fraud. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Getting Married and Getting Rich, System Not Participated in Fraud. Little brother, are you really going to use this long sword? The second shopkeeper took a deep breath and lowered the long sword in his hand. Lin Fan replied, "Of course we have to take action, otherwise why am I here?" "Okay." The second shopkeeper nodded and said, "Since you really want to take action, then the Divine Weapon Pavilion has bought it and is willing to offer 50 taels of silver. I wonder what you think." 50 taels. Lin Fan's eyes lit up at the words. In the Dalong Dynasty, currency is also made of gold, silver, and copper coins. 1 or 2 silver coins can be exchanged for 1,000 copper coins. In terms of purchasing power, 1 meat bun costs only 2 copper coins. 1 or 2 silver coins can buy 500 meat buns to cover the monthly living expenses of a large family. 50 liang. This big family has been spending for 5 years. Lin Fan only spent less than 2 days forging, using ordinary materials, and even semi-finished hose for waste utilization, which can be sold at such a high price. Full-level blacksmith skill. More powerful than he imagined. Not bad, it's 50 taels of silver grain. I wonder what you think, young man. The second shopkeeper smiled and said. This price is indeed the actual price, there is absolutely no intention of slaughtering the enemy. Of course, you may earn blood, but the Divine Weapon Pavilion will definitely not lose. Testing hardwood with 1 easy sword and 2 sections, the cut is smooth like a mirror, and the blade is not damaged at all. If you pack it casually and sell it, you can sell at least 100 taels or more. The people of Dalong are poor. That's just ordinary people. Some children from wealthy families, even those from aristocratic families, are extremely wealthy. Buying a divine weapon of 100 taels is not a big deal for these children. Lin Fan naturally knew that the Divine Weapon Pavilion would make a profit, even more than himself. But he has already done what he deserves, so naturally he won't be too greedy. I really want to lose money. Would others possibly want it? Okay, let's settle both the money and the goods. Having met his psychological expectations, Lin Fan pushed the long sword on the table in front of him. The second shopkeeper picked up the long sword again and summoned the servant to bring 50 taels of silver patterns, handing them to Lin Fan. Lin Fan took the silver. Both parties are considered to have settled the money and goods. Starting with 50 taels of silver, Lin Fan felt heavy. Not only has the head tax settled this year, but household expenses are no longer a problem. In one wave, one becomes wealthy. Getting married and becoming rich. The system is indeed not adulterated. After all, with full-level blacksmith skills, he can easily produce various weapons from source to source. Even the materials are in place. He can build true divine weapons. The legendary dragon-slaying sword in the martial arts world, if its materials can be met, it will not defeat him as a full-level blacksmith. Don't worry about divine weapons or anything else. With my current conditions, if I really create divine weapons, it may be a disaster. It's better to stabilize our current life first. Lin Fan suppressed his inner turmoil and put away the silver in his hand. He bowed to the second shopkeeper and the servant who let him in, and then turned around and left the Divine Weapon Pavilion. Shenbing Pavilion is truly a great commercial institution. There is no scene where someone immediately wants to snatch a treasure after selling something. Perhaps it's 50 taels, it's not worth them smashing their signs. Lin Fan looked back at the Divine Weapon Pavilion and walked towards the other end of the street. Create a long sword this time. The inventory left by Lin Fan's father at home has basically been used up. If you want to continue forging new weapons, you must purchase some raw materials to go back. The temperature of the charcoal is not enough, so he plans to buy some coal back. Only true high temperatures can unleash true swords. Coal and Iron Company. This is a semi-official department within the county town that specializes in selling coal and iron. Hello, what do you want to buy? The Coal and Iron Company is a semi-official department, and the receptionists are indifferent when they see customers. Lin Fan didn't care either, but handed out his father's blacksmith identity sign and said, "I want to buy some high-quality coal and raw iron. Could you please give me the receipt? How much do you want?" The receptionist looked at the blacksmith identity card handed over by Lin Fan and asked calmly. "Fine coal and iron. It is considered a controlled item in Dalong. Except for special professionals, ordinary people are not allowed to purchase to avoid waste. Blacksmith as a special profession can purchase a certain share." Lin Fan reported the amount he wanted as soon as he passed the verification. "A total of 5 liang, do you need any help to deliver it to your door? If it's delivered within 100 miles, an additional 200 yuan will be added." The other party takes out an abacus and calculates it with a crackling sound, then provides a quotation for the item and asks if door-to-door delivery service is required. Coal and iron are both heavy objects. In addition, Lin Fan has bought quite a lot, so carrying it on his own cannot resist it, so he needs to use a car to give it away. Lin Fan naturally understood this and chose door-to-door service. Given the other party's address and deposit, he took the receipt handed over by the other party and left the coal and iron company. As for the purchased coal and iron, the other party will arrange a dedicated person to deliver the goods to their doorstep. The coal and iron company is a semi-official department, so there is no need to worry about its credibility. And he only gave a small deposit, and the rest was paid on delivery. The other party is defaulting, and he doesn't have much loss. Leave the coal and iron company. Lin Fan returned to the bustling streets. But this time it's not selling swords, but buying some daily necessities. First, buy a batch of grain, then buy some essential items such as salt, sugar, and soap horns. Arriving at a jewelry store, Lin Fan thought for a moment and walked in. The jewelry sold inside are all women's products, such as jade hairpins and bracelets, and of course, there are also some strange things in various sachets. Lin Fan has never bought anything for the girl, and he doesn't quite understand these things. He just thought that his wife didn't even have decent jewelry, so he bought all 3 of them. This thing is not cheap. If you buy it all, you'll lose 10 taels of silver in one go, which is much more expensive than coal and iron. However, Lin Fan didn't think anything of it, it was just a 1.5 long sword. He could earn it back in minutes, so it's not even a big deal. "Young master, come often when you have free time." The female shopkeeper of the jewelry store laughed heartily and warmly sent Lin Fan, the big customer, out of the store. Her passionate eyes were filled with strong reluctance. Tianfeng County is just a small town. This 10 liang consumption is definitely a big customer, a rare scapegoat. Lin Fan touched the bridge of his nose and roughly knew that he had been slaughtered. "But I don't think there's anything wrong with it. As long as my wife is happy, I'll just kill some money. After all, there aren't many opportunities like this." Carrying a bag of jewelry, Lin Fan arrived at the fabric store again. Next is naturally another round of procurement. When everything was busy, Lin Fan not only gained a lot of things, but also the sky was getting late. "It seems that I won't be able to go back tonight. Tomorrow, the coal and iron company will help deliver the goods to my door, so I decided to go back with the delivery person." There was indeed some unease on the way at night. Lin Fan glanced at the things he had purchased, then at the sky, and decided to spend the night in the city. Ancient nights. It's different from modern times. There are not only various criminals outside, but also various fierce beasts. For example, big insects and wolf packs. If encountered, there will inevitably be a bloody battle. Although Lin Fan has the ability to be by his side, he doesn't want to rush even though the lights are dark. Don't get lost in the mountains and don't know where you go. I have made a decision in my heart. Lin Fan stayed at a decent-looking inn and planned to go back with the coal and iron company tomorrow. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Big Figures. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Big Figures Shinbing Pavilion. Just as Lin Fan was looking for an inn to deal with all night, a big shot suddenly arrived. This great figure has arrived. Not only did the second shopkeeper, who was responsible for receiving Lin Fan, wait respectfully for orders, but even the big shopkeeper, who rarely appears in person, appeared respectfully on standby. Is this sword just received? This great figure is an old man with white hair, who looks quite old, but his face is very rosy, full of vitality, and his voice is also very loud. He held a long sword in his hand and looked up to ask the two shopkeepers. Upon hearing this, the second shopkeeper bent down and said, "Yes, elder." This long sword was collected by a young man at noon and cost a total of 50 taels. 50 taels worth spending. Do you still remember the young man's appearance? The big shot nodded at the words and then continued to ask. Remember. The second shopkeeper nodded repeatedly. Then go find a painter and draw a rough portrait of him for Elder Ben. The big shot instructed with a blank expression. Obey me. The second shopkeeper quickly responded. Well, let's go down. The big shot waved to dismiss the second shopkeeper. As the second shopkeeper retreated, the first shopkeeper, who had not spoken earlier, asked with confusion, "Elder, is there something hidden about this sword? Can it make you so attentive?" There's nothing secretive about it, it's just that the forging technique is very interesting. It's 100 forging techniques that have long been lost in the martial arts world. I'm curious about who has regained control." The big shot smiled and explained his confusion. Hiss. Is it actually 100 forging techniques? The big shopkeeper took a cold breath upon hearing this, not as calm as the big shot. The method of forging 100 pieces. Others may find it unfamiliar. But their divine weapon pavilion specializes in weapon trading, and they are naturally familiar with various forging methods of weapons, otherwise they would not be able to do such a big business. At their headquarters, we cultivate many blacksmiths. However, none of the blacksmiths they trained mastered the technique of forging 100 times. It is rumored that this forging technique can turn decay into magic. Even ordinary scrap iron can be forged with this technique to create sharp divine weapons. I don't know if this is the case. The shopkeeper exclaimed with some emotion. This is natural. The big shot replied, this long sword is like this. Just now, Elder Ben tested it and found that the forged material is the most ordinary scrap iron. With the method of forging 100 times, he forged it hard to create a high-quality sword. Hush. That's too strong. The shopkeeper once again took a deep breath. Well, it's really strong. The big shot also nodded in agreement. Unfortunately, this sword looks like an old item. Otherwise, as long as you find the seller, you can easily find this master who masters the technique of forging. The shopkeeper shook his head and said regretfully. Who told you it's an old thing? The big shot asked directly. Isn't that right? The big shopkeeper hesitated to speak. If he could achieve the position of the big shopkeeper, his eyesight naturally existed, otherwise he would not be able to sit in that position. Of course not. The big shot smiled and said, although this long sword has been deliberately worn out and looks like it has been around for some years, and its techniques are very clever, I can clearly perceive the elder's internal strength of the crimson flame. Inside this long sword, there is a fiery aura surrounding it. It is a recently forged item. So. The shopkeeper's gaze instantly brightened. Not bad, the big shot replied, as long as you find the person who sells this long sword, there is a great chance of finding a master who has mastered the lost forging technique. I'll go supervise and handle it immediately. The shopkeeper became excited. Don't worry for now, just leave this matter to Xiao Chen to handle. Elder Ben is here this time, and there are other things that you need to do. The big shot stopped the excited shopkeeper with a somewhat solemn expression. Upon hearing this, the shopkeeper immediately stopped moving and respectfully requested, "Please instruct me, elder. As long as I can do what I can, I will definitely do my best to share your worries." "Well, sit down." The big shot nodded in satisfaction and sighed. This time elder came because the young lady ran away from home a few days ago, and the last information that the intelligence disciple found was that the young lady appeared in the Tianfeng city area. Therefore, you need to mobilize the energy in the city and search for her with all your might. Miss ran away from home. The shopkeeper once again took a deep breath and contributed to the warming of nature. "Well, this matter is temporarily classified as a confidential matter to prevent hostile forces from interfering. When you investigate, be careful and try to investigate this matter as discreetly as possible." A big shot speaks with advice. "Yes. Don't worry, elder." The shopkeeper forcefully suppressed the inner turmoil and nodded to take on this important task. On the other side, Lin Fan is unaware of the major events that occurred at the Divine Weapon Pavilion. He asked the waiter for a guest room and stayed with a bunch of things on his back. Arranged the waiter to bring some food to the room to eat, and he lay down in bed to rest. Without the presence of soft jade, he felt a bit uncomfortable with his mouth in his mouth. But there was nothing to do, he could only force himself to sleep. I was so confused until dawn. Waiting early the next morning, Lin Fan got up from the bed. After organizing his belongings, he quickly checked out and walked towards the coal and iron company, preparing to go home with the delivery carriage. What a coincidence! The groom in charge of delivering the goods has fallen ill, and the goods can only be delivered tomorrow. Helpless, Lin Fan can only go back on his own first. Not returning overnight, his wives are already worried. "If I spend another night here, I don't know what I'm worried about. Moreover, there is no food left at home. If we don't go back today, our 3 wives will have to go hungry." Make your wife hungry. He naturally does not want such a thing. After confirming that the goods would be delivered tomorrow, he returned alone carrying a basket of things. But before he could go far, he met an acquaintance. This acquaintance is none other than Yun Yang, who brought his wife to his door a few days ago. Sister Yun Yang. The other party sent him 3 beautiful women, and since they met, they naturally wanted to say hello. "Oh, it's you, little brother." Yun Yang didn't recognize it at first, but it took a while to recognize it. It's not her bad memory, but Lin Fan from a few days ago has changed too much compared to now. Not to mention anything else, just the overall mental state of the person is almost identical. If it weren't for Lin Fan's fair and handsome appearance, sword eyebrows and starry eyes, standing out among the crowd in places like Shankara, which had a profound impact, she would not have recognized it. "Yes, but I'm not a little brother anymore. I'm already an adult." Lin Fan smiled and clarified. "Well, it's indeed an adult." Yun Yang lightly tapped Lin Fan's chest and chuckled. "Hee, it's necessary." Lin Fan chuckled and took a step back without leaving a trace. Is this Nima half-old Sun Yang able to suck soil or wood while squatting on the ground? Cluck! Yun Yang suddenly smiled and looked at what was behind Lin Fan, surprised and said, "Little brother, it seems that your life is getting more and more prosperous. You buy so many things." Lin Fan replied, "It's okay. It's all thanks to Sister Yun Yang's help." He is truly telling the truth. But Yun Yang thought it was just a joke and joked, "Since that's the case, next time there's a young lady who can't be assigned, will sister bring her to your house?" "Sure." Lin Fan naturally has no reason to refuse such a good thing. The kind of woman who was despised with his 3 little ladies, he didn't panic even when he received a train. With the system in place, this can be said to be more beneficial. Cluck! Beautiful you. Yun Yang's smile became even more brilliant, and a wave of waves rolled over her chest. Her gaze towards Lin Fan began to deviate. Lin Fan expressed that he couldn't resist being held back and was afraid that the other party would suck on the soil. After chatting a few more words, he hastily said goodbye. I haven't met any acquaintances this time. I left smoothly through the city gate. However, halfway through, I suddenly heard the roar of a tiger coming from the mountains and forests ahead. I heard a tiger howling. Lin Fan suddenly became restless. He went up the mountain to fight Tiger Fist, specifically created for fighting tigers. Now a tiger has voluntarily brought it to your door. Don't you waste it if you don't try. Today's third update, a new book. If you think it's okay, please give it a collection and positive review. Your support is the motivation for the author to work hard to update. Thank you. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Fighting Tigers on the Mountain. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Fighting Tigers on the Mountain, when a wave of tiger fighting heroes. I don't know if he was influenced by his martial arts, but Lin Fan was a bit restless. And there's one more thing. That is, tigers can sell for money. Whether it's expensive tiger skin or tiger bones and meat, they can all be exchanged for a lot of money. The tiger is covered in treasures. This sentence is not just a statement. Do you see that even in modern times, even though tigers are protected, there are still unscrupulous vendors who take risks and secretly slaughter tigers for sale, earning millions with just one head? This transaction, it is not much worse than drug trafficking in China. Although this world is not so exaggerated, tigers are also very valuable. Tiger skin can be sold to wealthy households for luxurious decoration. Tiger bones and tiger meat. It can be sold to the children of wealthy families as a great supplement for physical health. And the tiger whip. I understand everything I know. After this calculation, the forest ahead is no longer a tiger, but a moving silver ingot. Without much hesitation, Lin Fan walked towards the howling direction. I didn't rush forward recklessly, but rather planned to see the situation. But the tiger hasn't seen it yet. I actually saw a young man running towards him in embarrassment and shouting for help. Help, help. The young man stumbled and stumbled, feeling extremely embarrassed. After seeing Lin Fan, he grabbed a life-saving straw and shouted loudly, "There's a big bug ahead, there's a big bug ahead." Talking, stumbling and stumbling. Obviously scared. Lin Fan saw that the tiger was still planning to harm people, and there was even more reason why he had to take action. Without saying a word, Lin Fan put down the basket on his back and strode towards the other person's back. Before Xiaoyan could finish speaking lightly, he saw Lin Fan bravely heading towards the big bug, and he was momentarily stunned, forgetting to continue running. In the end, he thought of something and gritted his teeth hard, turning back to follow. In the mountain forest path, there was a fierce tiger roaring and launching a cull against a figure. This figure is also a young man, dressed in chivalrous attire, but compared to the embarrassed young man just now, he is much sharper. Faced with fierce tiger attacks, he is holding a long sword to fight against it. A long and slender sword was dancing tightly, with a cold light shining, making it look like it was in a movie. If it were an ordinary tiger, it's really possible that he forced him to retreat. After all, wild beasts don't want to be injured. Unfortunately, he encountered a tiger king. A tiger king who, whether in size or momentum, far surpasses an ordinary fierce tiger. I saw this tiger king roaring in the mountains and forests, with every kill carrying a gust of fishy wind. The terrifying pressure made the insects and birds in a few miles silent and trembling. As tall as a water buffalo, it is like a meat-shaped heavy tank that can crush all enemies. The young people who are currently fighting do have two talents, not just embroidered pillows, but when faced with this terrifying tiger king, they quickly fell behind and only gritted their teeth to persevere. Defeat, this is basically a foregone conclusion. The young man who followed him back almost fainted when he saw this scene. Lin Fan knew that this young man couldn't help, and it was a great courage for the other person to run back with him. I can't rely on hope anymore. But he also had no hope. Young Xia, please retreat and rest, let me take this big bug. Lin Fan took a deep breath and walked step by step towards the Tiger King. The young man, who was struggling to resist, took a moment to glance at Lin Fan. When he saw a picture of Lin Fan, who looked weak and scholarly, he shook his head and said, "You go quickly. This is not something you can handle. It's actually a chivalrous heart." Lin Fan nodded slightly upon hearing the words. The other party was almost bound to die, and they didn't want to bring disaster to the east, pulling him to support them. Such properties. Indeed, it can be considered a chivalrous heart. But the more it looks like this, the more Lin Fan is going to take action. A living life. It's okay if he can't help, but he has a way to help now. It's just the Tiger King. He really wants to give it a try. With a lively physique, and a boxing technique specifically designed to fight tigers, he may be weak when dealing with martial arts masters, but he is just a tiger and has not yet made this claim. Lin Fan decided not to talk nonsense, but to seize the opportunity on the edge, make a leap with energy, and use the strongest move of the mountain tiger fist. Tonight's tiger fight. The title of the fist technique is very sloppy. But the momentum was extraordinary, and in the moment it was used, it suppressed the Tiger King's tiger power. The Tiger King was already attracted by the young hero's attention, coupled with the special suppression of fighting tiger fist on the mountain. Faced with Lin Fan's strongest killing move, he didn't react at all and was knocked away with a single punch. A Tiger King weighing nearly 1,000 pounds. In the midst of a flying attack, he was punched away by someone. This is no less than the effect of a small car being kicked away at high speed. How fierce! The young hero couldn't help but widen his eyes when he saw this scene. Bang! The Tiger King broke a tree before finally releasing his strength and landing, with blood oozing from the corner of his mouth. Obviously, Lin Fan's killing move has caused it considerable trauma. However, the Tiger King has gone through countless battles and is a king who has been killed all the way. This trauma naturally did not make it retreat, but instead stimulated the ferocity of the king. Roar! The deafening roar of the tiger, even the young hero with impressive strength, was momentarily stunned. However, Lin Fan was not affected, and instead, the blood in his body was constantly boiling. When receiving the tiger fist on the mountain, he experienced countless memories of tiger fights in the simulation space of the system. Faced with the roar of the tiger, he was not only not afraid, but also had a higher fighting spirit. Evil beast! Suffer death! Lin Fan stared fiercely, looking even more ferocious than the Tiger King, completely different from his usual weak and scholarly appearance, like a brave tiger fighting hero. Not holding any weapons. With just a pair of flesh and blood fists, he took the initiative to launch an attack on the Tiger King. Go up the mountain and fight Tiger Fist. It looks like the moves are mediocre, but each time they can counter the Tiger King's attack, completely suppressing the Tiger King's attacks. No matter how angry the Tiger King roars, it has no effect. Is this a return to simplicity? The young hero's gaze fixed on him, completely unable to get in touch, and he became a mass of onlookers. Young master, are you okay? The young man who was scared just now hurriedly ran forward. I'm fine, didn't I tell you to leave quickly? Why did you come back again? The young hero scolded, what's the situation with this hero? Isn't he worried about you? The young man muttered to himself, then exclaimed with joy, this young master, I just ran into him on the road. He heard me say that there are big insects that not only don't run, but also come to help without saying a word. The young man chattered and made the young hero who inquired understand the situation. Faced with fierce insects, he didn't hesitate to help. He is truly a hero with a chivalrous heart. The young hero sincerely praised, and his gaze towards Lin Fan was full of appreciation. The young man nodded in agreement. This big bug is going to lose. Suddenly, the young hero spoke up and the two of them looked towards the battlefield together. In fact, this is indeed the case. Under Lin Fan's tiger punch greeting, even the Tiger King couldn't bear it, with multiple fractures on his body and blood continuously flowing from the corners of his mouth, clearly suffering from severe internal injuries. Dong! Lin Fan punched heavily again and hit the center of the Tiger King's eyebrows. A massive object weighing 1,000 pounds was forced to lie down by a pair of iron fists. Wusong fights against tigers. I still need a stick to help. But Lin Fan, the Tiger King, doesn't need anything, just a pair of fists is enough. What a powerful fist! The young hero once again praised. Lin Fan stubbornly lay down as the Tiger King, feeling a bit panting. However, after taking a few deep breaths, he recovered. His lively physique made him surprisingly persistent. However, just as he was preparing to pack up the tiger corpse and sell it for money, the Tiger King, who had just hung on the wall, suddenly came to life. He jumped in place like a warthog, and a few leaps plunged into the dense mountains and forests. The silver coins that come to my mouth, just ran away in a flash. Lin Fan's movements stopped in mid-air, and his whole body suddenly became uncomfortable. End of this chapter.